The unknown threat. The vastness of space was quiet, as it always had been. Planets spun in their orbits, stars burned with steady light, and the mighty fleets of the Zypharian Dominion patrolled the galaxy, enforcing their rule with absolute power. No species had dared challenge them for centuries. But tonight, something was wrong. Admiral Kresik, one of the most feared commanders of the Dominion, stood on the bridge of his massive battleship, the Warbringer. His four glowing eyes focused on the large holographic display in front of him. A flashing red alert dominated the screen. A distress call had just been received from Outpost V-72, one of the Dominion's border stations. The transmission was fragmented. It was full of static, but the last words sent by the outpost crew were clear enough. Unidentified warship approaching. Impossible speed. Weapon systems offline. It's HFY. The message cut off abruptly. Silence followed. Kresik's long fingers clenched into a fist. He turned to his officers. Replay the last recorded data from the outpost's scanners. A moment later, the screen changed. A grainy, distorted image appeared, captured just before the outpost was wiped from existence. It showed a single warship, sleek and dark, moving at incomprehensible speed toward the outpost. The ship's design was unlike anything seen before. And then, in a flash of light, the outpost was gone. Kresik's heart pounded. Humans. The Dominion had not seen them in over 100 years. The last time they fought, humanity had been losing. Their fleets were pushed back, their colonies destroyed, and then they'd vanished. No human ships, no transmissions, no survivors. The Dominion assumed they had gone extinct. But now, a human warship had appeared out of nowhere, moving faster than the Dominion's most advanced technology. How fast is it traveling? Kresik demanded. One of the officers hesitated before answering. Admiral, the ship's velocity is beyond Dominion limits. It's breaking every rule of physics we understand. Impossible, Kresik hissed. Yet the data was clear. The human warship was approaching, and it was not slowing down. Kresik turned toward his communication officer. Send a message to all Dominion fleets. We have a new enemy approaching. His voice was calm, but deep inside, he felt something he had never felt before. Admiral Kresik did not waste time. The Zypharian Dominion had ruled space for centuries, and they did not tolerate unknown threats. As soon as the mysterious human warship destroyed Outpost V-72, he issued a full-scale alert. Every ship in the sector was called into action. A fleet of 12 Zypharian warships, each powerful enough to annihilate entire planets, was quickly assembled and moved into position. Their orders were clear: intercept and eliminate the human ship before it reached Dominion space. But deep down, Kresik knew this was not a normal situation. The warship's impossible speed was already proof that something was wrong. The Zypharian Empire had fought humanity before, and while humans were known for their resilience, they had never possessed technology like this. Yet here it was. The fleet moved swiftly, their engines burning bright as they raced toward the last known location of the human ship. The vastness of space stretched before them, silent and empty, until they saw it. At first it was just a shadow on their long-range scanners, a faint outline, almost like a glitch. The Dominion's advanced targeting systems tried to lock onto the ship, but something interfered. The readings kept shifting as if the ship was both there and not there at the same time. Scanners are unable to get a clear reading, one of the officers reported. It's as if the ship is cloaked in some kind of advanced field. Admiral Kresik narrowed his eyes. Can we establish communication? The transmission channel opened, and a deep mechanical voice from the Zypharian command ship broadcasted a warning. Unidentified vessel, you are trespassing in Zypharian Dominion territory. Identify yourself immediately or prepare to be destroyed. For a few seconds, there was no response. Then, a single word came through, spoken in perfect Zypharian dialect. Run. The word echoed through the bridge like a death sentence. Before Krezk could even process what had happened, the human warship moved. One moment, it was hundreds of kilometers away. The next, it was right in front of them. The Zypharian fleet had no time to react. The human warship opened fire. A single beam of energy erupted from the warship's hull. The Zypharian ships were covered in the best shields in the galaxy, capable of withstanding asteroid impacts and high-energy blasts. It didn't matter. The beam pierced through the first Zypharian battleship, cutting it in half like a knife through paper. The explosion lit up the void, sending debris flying in all directions. Hundreds of Zypharian soldiers were vaporized in an instant. "Shields up! Return fire!" Krezk roared. The remaining 11 warships unleashed that devastating barrage. Torpedoes, plasma cannons, and energy beams rained down on the human ship. And yet, nothing hit. The human warship vanished. 1 second, it was in front of them. The next, it was behind them, moving so fast that their sensors couldn't keep up. Another beam of energy sliced through a second Zypharian warship, then another, and another. Within seconds, 4 warships were destroyed. Panic spread through the fleet. "This is impossible," an officer shouted. "How is it moving like that?" Krezk's mind raced. He had fought countless battles, faced enemy fleets of all kinds, but this was something different. This wasn't a battle. This was a slaughter. The human warship was hunting them. "Retreat," he ordered. "All remaining ships, retreat." But it was too late. The human warship sent out another transmission, this time a direct message to Krezk himself. "You should have run faster." And then, the warship attacked again. The moment Admiral Krezk issued the retreat order, chaos erupted across the fleet as Zypharian warships scrambled to escape. Their once impenetrable battle formations now reduced to a desperate, disorganized scattering of vessels, each one struggling to flee from an enemy that moved faster than anything they had ever encountered in the history of their empire's long reign over the stars. Despite their advanced navigational systems, the warships found themselves utterly powerless as the human vessel warped unpredictably, appearing and disappearing across the battlefield in a way that defied the very laws of physics, almost as if it was toying with them, allowing them to believe for a moment that they might survive, only to strike with brutal precision the instant their defenses weakened. On board the Zypharian flagship, Krezk could hear the voices of his officers breaking down in terror, their disciplined commands dissolving into shouts of confusion, desperate pleas for reinforcements, and even open prayers to the old gods, a rare sign of fear among a species that prided itself on its ruthless logic and unwavering dominance over the lesser civilizations of the galaxy. The scanners. One officer stammered, his trembling fingers failing to operate the control panel correctly. It's gone again. How is it disappearing like that? How are we supposed to fight something we can't even see?" Krezk's sharp claws dug into the metal armrest of his command chair, his mind racing through every possible scenario, every strategic maneuver, every countermeasure that had ever been recorded against enemy warships, and yet none of them seemed applicable to what was happening now, because this was not just an overwhelming show of firepower, it was something far worse. This was a demonstration of complete technological superiority, the kind that no empire, no matter how powerful, could afford to ignore, because it meant only one thing. Humanity had advanced beyond anything the galaxy had prepared for, and now, the Zypharian Dominion was paying the price for underestimating a species they once considered weak. "Enemy ship has reappeared," another officer shouted, her voice shrill with panic. It's right behind us, Admiral." Before Krezk could even issue a command, the warship struck again, unleashing a beam of energy so intense that it didn't just destroy the next Zypharian vessel, it erased it from existence, leaving nothing behind but an expanding cloud of vaporized metal where a fully armed battlecruiser had been just moments before. The remaining ships, now reduced to half their original number, made a desperate attempt to coordinate their retreat, but the human warship was relentless, cutting through their ranks with terrifying speed. weaving between the wreckage of its own destruction with eerie precision, as if it already knew every move they were going to make before they even made it. It was at that moment that Krezk realized something truly terrifying. This was not an accident, nor was it simply a rogue warship on the loose. This had been planned. The human warship had let them find it. It had allowed them to send out their fleet. It had baited them into thinking they were the ones in control. And now, it was systematically eradicating them, piece by piece, ship by ship, like a predator playing with its prey before the kill. A cold chill ran through Krezk's body, a sensation he had not felt since his early days as a soldier when he had first learned the brutal lessons of warfare, the lessons that had shaped him into the warrior he was today. But this was something else. This was not war. This was annihilation, and the Zyfarian Dominion had no defense against it. Admiral Krezk's claws trembled against the control panel as he stared at the battlefield before him. The once proud Zyfarian fleet was in ruins. What had started as a mighty armada, prepared to crush a primitive species, had been shattered in mere moments. The human warship moved like a phantom, striking with terrifying precision, its every shot a kill, its every maneuver a trap. Krezk's mind raced for a solution, anything that could turn the tide. But every strategy, every formation, every escape route, all of it was useless. The enemy wasn't just stronger, they were playing with them. Admiral, a Zyfarian officer screamed from the command pit. The Bloodfang has been destroyed. Captain Frazak's ship is gone. Krezk's breath caught in his throat. The Bloodfang had been one of the Dominion's most powerful warships, a dreadnought designed for planetary assaults and deep space warfare. It had shields capable of withstanding sustained bombardment from entire fleets. And yet, it had been obliterated in a single strike. How? The answer was clear. Humanity had surpassed them. This wasn't the species they had mocked, dismissed, or labeled as young and reckless. This was a force beyond anything the galaxy had ever faced. Admiral, our long-range weapons can't lock onto the enemy, another officer cried. His voice cracked with fear, his usually firm Zyfarian discipline fracturing under the weight of despair. Every time we get a lock, they'd vanish from our sensors. It was impossible. Even the most advanced cloaking devices couldn't function in live combat. No empire had perfected such technology. The humans shouldn't be capable of this. But they were. Krezk clenched his jaw, trying to suppress the cold dread clawing at his chest. What about short-range defenses? Missile tracking? Anything? The officer shook his head. No effect. It's as if they see every move before we make it. Every time we fire, they're already gone. Every time we turn to escape, they're already there. It's like they know our battle systems better than we do. A deep silence filled the bridge. It was the silence of realization. They were completely outmatched. Another explosion rocked the flagship. Sparks flew from the ceiling as the ship lurched violently, throwing officers against the walls. Warning alarms screamed, drowning out the panicked voices of the crew. Shields failing. We can't hold out much longer. Krezk gritted his teeth. His warriors, his empire, his people were being slaughtered. He had led them into this battle, and now he was watching them die. No, he couldn't allow this. He wouldn't allow this. Taking a deep breath, he forced the fear from his mind and turned to his officers. We are not dying like animals. We are the Zyfarian Dominion. We are warriors. If we go down fighting. The remaining officers snapped to attention, their fear momentarily replaced by defiance. The Zyfarians had never surrendered in their long history of conquest. They had never run from battle. And even in their darkest hour, they wouldn't break now. Prepare for a suicidal charge, Krezk commanded. All remaining ships, focus fire on the enemy vessel. Overload our reactors if we have to. If we can't survive, we'll take them with us. A war cry erupted across the bridge. Despair turned to rage. Fear turned to fury. The Zyfarians would not be remembered as cowards. But even as they steeled themselves for one final stand, the human warship suddenly stopped moving. Every Zypharian ship in the fleet froze. It was as if the enemy vessel had lost interest. Confusion spread through the fleet. Why did they stop? An officer whispered, "Are they letting us go?" For a fleeting moment, Krezk almost believed it. Then the human warship opened a transmission. A chilling metallic voice echoed across every Zypharian ship. "The hunt is over. You are no longer worth our time." And then, the true horror began. Admiral Krezk's mandibles tightened as the chilling transmission echoed through every Zypharian warship, the metallic voice of the humans carrying an unmistakable message, not of mercy, but of utter dismissal. The battle had not been a contest. It had been an execution, a one-sided slaughter where the Zypharian fleet, once feared across the stars, had been reduced to prey. For the first time in his long military career, Krezk felt something that he had never allowed himself to acknowledge: fear. The humans weren't just winning. They had already won. And now, they had deemed the Zypharians unworthy of further effort. "Admiral, they're not firing anymore," an officer stammered, his usual sharp voice replaced with something brittle, something fragile. "They're just hovering there, watching." Krezk's claws dug into the metal railing of his command post, his mind racing. Why? Was this some form of psychological warfare? Were they to be spared? No, humans were not known for mercy, not after what the Dominion had done to their colonies, not after the raids, the exterminations, the experiments conducted on their captured soldiers. A sudden realization struck him like a plasma bolt. They weren't sparing the Zypharians out of pity. They were studying them, testing them, observing how they reacted to total and absolute defeat. It was not an act of kindness, it was a final humiliation. "We cannot allow this," Krezk growled, his voice low and dangerous. "They think they can make us submit through fear alone. That we will cower before them like broken creatures." His gaze burned with desperate determination as he turned to his crew. "I refuse. We refuse. We are Zypharians. We will not bow." A chorus of voices, some still shaky, others desperate for anything to hold on to, echoed his words. The bridge shook with renewed conviction, the fires of defiance momentarily overshadowing the dread that had seeped into their bones. "Prepare the fleet for a final charge," Krezk commanded, his voice sharp and unwavering. "If we are to fall, let it be with our weapons blazing, our ships burning brightly against the void. If we die, let it be in glory." But even as the order was given, as the battered Zypharian warships turned to launch one last, desperate attack, the human vessel moved again, not to flee, not to counterattack, but to deliver the final blow in a way none of them expected. Every screen across the Zypharian fleet flickered. Every sensor system failed simultaneously. Every ship's engine sputtered to a halt, leaving them adrift in space like helpless debris. And then, the transmission returned. "You have misunderstood us, Admiral Krezk. You were never a threat. This was never a war. This was a message." The human ship, still untouched, still silent and waiting, pulsed with a strange alien energy. The cold chill ran down Krezk's spine. "A message," he repeated, barely above a whisper. The voice responded, devoid of emotion, but carrying the weight of a cosmic executioner. "Yes, a message to your entire dominion. The next time you raise your weapons against humanity, we will not stop. We will not study. We will not warn. There will be nothing left. No fleets, no planets, no Zypharians, only silence." The transmission cut out, and in the next second, the human warship vanished, not through traditional hyperspace travel, not through any method detectable by Zypharian technology. It simply ceased to exist in front of their eyes. Krezk stood frozen, his mind struggling to process the reality before him. The war was over. Not because of diplomacy, not because of negotiations, but because humanity had chosen to let them live. And that was the greatest horror of all. The Zypharian fleet drifted in silence, their warships powerless, their crews paralyzed with a fear they had never known before. Every display screen across their remaining vessels was dark, every engine offline, every weapon system rendered useless. Admiral Kresik stood frozen on the bridge, his claws gripping the dead console before him, his mind trapped in the chilling realization that they had never stood a chance. The humans had disabled their entire fleet without firing a single additional shot. It was not a battle. It was a demonstration. They had been shown the terrifying gap between them and humanity, a gap so vast that it rendered Zypharian military doctrine meaningless. They had spent centuries perfecting warfare, refining tactics, building warships, training elite soldiers, only to be treated like insignificant insects by a species they had once considered primitive. Across the bridge, officers stared at the blank screens, at their frozen systems, at each other. Some trembled, others gritted their teeth, but none spoke. There was nothing left to say. Kresik's mind raced, searching for something, anything that could reverse this situation. Could they attempt manual control? Could they reroute power? Could they at least send a distress signal? But deep down, he knew the truth. The humans had given them back their lives, but only because wiping them out was unnecessary. And that was far worse than death. A flicker of movement outside the viewport caught Kresik's eye. The human warship, still untouched, still undamaged, remained in the distance, a silent predator watching its wounded prey. But it was not alone. One by one, smaller vessels materialized around it. Dozens, then hundreds. They had not come through hyperspace in any way that Zypharian sensors could detect. They had simply appeared, as if they had always been there, unseen. Kresik's blood ran cold. They had never been facing just one warship. The humans had let them see only what they wanted them to see. Across the fleet, frantic voices filled what little communication remained, as terrified officers realized the truth. This wasn't a fleet arriving to fight. This was the fleet that had been watching them the entire time. This was the force that had already won before the Zypharians had even begun their assault. Then, for the first time since their systems had shut down, a new message came through. But it did not come from the humans. It came from Zypharian High Command. The words, though clipped and calm, carried a weight of sheer disbelief. Stand down. Immediately. Do not engage. A full retreat is authorized. Kresik stared at the transmission in shock. Retreat. The Dominion had never authorized a full retreat in its history. It was unthinkable. But even more unthinkable was the knowledge that this was not a command given by choice. This was the response of an empire that had just received a message from humanity, one far beyond what Kresik himself had heard. The realization hit him like a thunderbolt. The war was not just over. It had never truly begun. The Zypharian Dominion had pushed too far, and now they had seen what lay on the other side of that line. Not an enemy they could fight, not a force they could resist, but something they had woken up, something patient and calculating, something that had chosen, for reasons unknown, to let them go. And yet, deep in his core, Kresik understood the unspoken warning. Next time, humanity would not. Kresik had always believed that war was a matter of numbers, strategy, and firepower. That an empire as vast as the Zypharian Dominion could never be truly threatened. But now, as he stood on the powerless bridge of his flagship, staring at the countless human warships surrounding them, he understood how wrong he had been. The Dominion had never faced anything like this before. The human fleet had not just defeated them, it had rendered them irrelevant. The Zypharian Armada, once the pride of their empire, was now nothing more than a collection of floating wrecks, their weapons disabled, their systems dead. They had no control over their ships, no way to fight back. Even their most advanced technologies had proven useless. The humans had stripped them of everything in a single effortless move. And then the final message came through. The main screen flickered back to life, displaying a single figure, a human. His expression was unreadable, his voice calm. You came here seeking war. You will not get another chance. The message ended. Simple. Absolute. There was no threat, no declaration of continued hostility, just a statement of fact. And in that moment, Krezk knew what it meant. The Zyfarian Dominion would never recover from this. Their leaders would try to spin the story, pretend this was a minor setback, but every officer, every soldier who had witnessed this moment would know the truth. The Dominion had lost. Not just this battle, not just this war. They had lost their place in the galaxy. No species would fear them anymore. No empire would bow to their demands. The Zyfarians had ruled through intimidation, but now, the galaxy had seen the truth. The real power lay with humanity. And the most terrifying thing, the humans had chosen to let them live. Krezk turned his gaze back to the human warships, still surrounding them, still watching. If they had wanted to, they could have erased the entire Zephyrian fleet in seconds. Instead, they had given them one chance. A warning. Next time, there would be no mercy. Krezk took a deep breath and straightened his uniform. He would return to the Dominion. He would deliver this message, and he would make sure that no Zephyrian ever dared to challenge humanity again.